You're on the payroll of the oil companies. Actually, the big oil companies are financing the climate change movement. Open any major magazine, you see BP, ExxonMobil ads, Dutch Roll Shell ads. You see them on billboards everywhere, in airports everywhere, saying we've got to have the global carbon tax. I mean, they're funding it. Just like the insurance companies wrote the health care bill. And the only real socialist in the House, the guy that admits he's a socialist, Dennis Kucinich, came out and wrote an article titled, "Health care bill is a bailout to the insurance companies." And he voted against it, saying it's all a fraud. Of course it's a fraud. The insurance companies wrote the health care bill as a way to rob people and force them to get insurance. It has nothing to do with taking care of the American people. But see, the media then says, oh, the insurance companies are against this. The healthcare companies are against this. And then the mainline public, who's anti-establishment, they've at least figured that out. They get conned and suddenly start cheerleading for it. Same thing with this tax. I am almost without words right now. This is so good, what's happened. But at the same time, the media spin is to only focus on the mean things they called other climatologists and hydrologists and meteorologists. And then the media ignores the parts, even though in some of the articles they have the quotes where they say, we got to get these people fired. We got to persecute them. We got to get their funding pulled. We got to get them banned from academic journals. We got to boycott this journal. I'd like to beat this guy up. The media is focusing on statements like that instead of the statements in these emails between British and U.S. scientists and the UN. We're going to go over these today. In fact, get me Paul Watson. He is one of the leading experts we've got in this office because he's obsessed with this even more than I am. He's written the big detailed article. Get me Watson on at about 40 after. I want to get his quick take because I know his article has all these quotes. I've got them here in front of me, but I'm almost beside myself right now because it's the best of times. It's the worst of times. This information's coming out right now when we have a chance to stop all this. But the people that have carried out this fraud, it looks like, aren't even going to get in trouble. We need to call for them to be nailed to the wall. The problem is the same government that would prosecute them is behind all this.
We're on the march. The empire's on the run. Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network. He's the T-Rex of political talk. Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the equivalent, with a Star Wars analogy, of Bothan spies stealing the Death Star plans. But that doesn't do anything if we don't mount an assault with our X-Wings. If we don't mount an assault with our X-Wings. Your phone calls are coming up in the next segment. I'm going to try to calm myself and later in the next hour go through these emails, go through these documents. This is so huge. These people should have police raiding them right now because they're calling for how to intimidate, how to shut down scientists, how to get people kicked off journals, how to boycott journals, how to behind the scenes intimidate scientists with their research funding. But that's only part of it. You have a global government openly being announced, the carbon tax, Ban Ki-moon 3 weeks ago, Secretary General of the UN, saying the carbon tax in Copenhagen is the key to funding the global government. We have Von Rompuy, the new head of the EU, calling for global government, global governance, and saying the carbon tax is the key to all of it. I just played the clip earlier. If we're able to discredit this as a total fraud, see, it's a cult. That's why they have the National Football League and the National Baseball and Soccer Leagues and the UN and all the major sitcoms and dramas and the school kids being brainwashed. All of them being told, you must accept this. Humans are bad. We must tax you. I have mainstream news articles today, the London Guardian. Global body needed to direct green technology. Developing nations call for UN body to police battle on climate change. See, the global government will tax and regulate and police what humans exhale 5.5 pounds a day of carbon dioxide. Paul Watson, I want to get your take on how big this is, the articles you've written, what you, your brother, and Kurt and Emma were doing at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. I also want to go with the angle of other scientific frauds in history, but how this one is worse. You know, scientists would make up a fake missing link to make a bunch of money. This is big banks, J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and others on record, the number one funders, George Soros, openly funding this to have taxes paid directly to them. Of course it's a fraud. And they know it's a fraud. You know, Rush Limbaugh calls them environmentalist wackos. Yeah, they're crazy like a fox. No, they're not wackos. They're in charge of the planet because they're slick criminal con artists. In fact, play Al Gore right now. Here is Al Gore calling for global governments, and then I'll play Von Rumpe again, and then I'm going to play Gordon Brown for all of you. Here is Al Gore.
But it is the awareness itself that will drive the change. And one of the ways it will drive the change is through global governance and global agreements.
All right.
But the many business leaders who have been.
And there he goes. Then he goes into how the business leaders are all going to make money. See, the UN openly states they will decide, and private boards they certify, run by Al Gore and others, will decide what technologies can be developed, who can have a company, who will be taxed. This is a totally managed economy through the rubric and the pretext of climate change. Here is Von Rumpe, Bilderberg member, new EU president.
By a joint effort in and between our countries, 2009 is also the first year of global governance with the establishment of the G20 in the middle of the financial crisis. The climate conference in Copenhagen is another step towards the global management of our planet.
Okay. What did I say? That's his speech last Thursday. What did I say last October when they passed the banker takeover bill? I said it's a banker takeover. They're going to pass the global carbon tax. It will be paid directly to them. That's now all been admitted because I'm reading their own documents. This is it. This is the year of global governance. And I told you it's dead on arrival. That's why they're saying they want to arrest people that disagree with them. Now, here is Gordon Brown.
Distance to redress the balance of the old. In 1990, another old world ended, dominated by the Cold War, and people talked then, in 1990, of a new world order. What they actually meant then was a new political order.
All right.
And what was not foreseen then...
And under this new world order, you have a private group of banks, Ponzi scheme. This is just a bunch of Madoff Ken Lays. It was actually Madoff and Ken Lay. It was Ken Lay with Al Gore that came up with this whole plan. It's an outrageous hoax. It's an outrageous fraud. Now we have the internal emails of the head UN scientist talking to the head U.S. UN scientist at NASA about how to fake graphs and engage in fraud. And I want to say again, the media is trying to spin this saying, oh, we don't know if the emails are all real. The university admits they were stolen, and the people quoted in the emails were dumb. They talked because this blindsided him and said, well, yeah, I said that, but it's taken out of context. They are confirming themselves. It's real.